President Obama signed a law yesterday that gives the Environmental Protection Agency stronger tools to help regulate toxic chemicals found in many household products, including detergents, clothing, furniture, and so on. So the bipartisan bill, according to supporters, is proof that Congress does sometimes do stuff. So guys, yesterday this law was put into place. It gives stronger regulation power to the EPA. Up until this point, they didn't really have much oversight over chemicals that are used in everyday household products. So the new law is called the Frank R. Lautenberg Chemical Safety for the 21st Century Act. Now what this does is it expands and it updates an already existing law, which was called the Toxic Substances Control Act. That was made in 1976, but it hasn't been updated since that time.
Joya, the EPA, they have a fiduciary responsibility to consumers to protect them. They're just now doing this 35 years later?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Exactly. And even though it is bipartisan, there are certain tenets of it that are somewhat controversial. But just to give you an idea, up until this point, the EPA didn't really have much oversight. They really couldn't take action to make sure that a chemical didn't make it on the market unless they were able to prove that it was an unreasonable risk, to the point where they couldn't even ban asbestos, which is a carcinogen. It's been proved to cause, lung cancer and all of this stuff. They're still having this this debate, I suppose.
Which just shows how much bureaucracy, how much bullshit goes into all this. You have common sense. Something's proven that it's bad for humans, yet you still got to go, through all of this mumbo jumbo just to get things passed. But this isn't the first thing that we've seen similar to this. Actually, we saw the banning of. Really, not the banning, but very high restrictions on certain face washes and soaps that have those little micro beads in them that, like, you rub on your face and you're like, oh, it's working. You know those?
Right.
Well, in reality, they do absolutely nothing,
right.
And it's just to make you feel like, oh, it does nothing. But those little tiny things go down your sink, and by the way, a lot of it's plastic. It ends up in the stomachs of fish, and then we ended up eating. We end up eating them. So it's actually, something we don't think about. All these things go down our sink. It magically disappears. No, it doesn't. It goes into the ocean,
well, and you
so
think
it's
about
important.
Just like certain linings of things, linings of cans that have this kind of cancer-causing, BPA, exactly. So, the EPA is expected to review at least 10 plus toxic chemicals. That includes asbestos, the formaldehyde, certain flame retardants. All of these are found in our homes, their cars, furniture, clothing, all of these kinds of things. So what's interesting is, like I said, it was a bipartisan bill. I believe it passed, 403 to 12. So this was a bipartisan bill.
Who would be against?
Yeah,
chemicals killing you. Not killing you, rather.
But just the risk that's posed. So even the Society of Chemical Manufacturers and Alliance and affiliates, they praised this passage. They said that it was a good compromise, but then of course some environmental activists or groups say that it still doesn't do enough. It still requires the EPA to go through these periods of monitoring, basically the time that it would take to even determine whether or not these chemicals are a risk, let alone the time that it would take for the companies to remove those chemicals. So, it's one of those things where I don't think necessarily enough was done. At the same time, I suppose in this state of the political game, we can be happy that Congress agreed on something, right?
Right. It's like, who would disagree with this? But at the same time, 99% of scientists, say that the Earth is warming. Everyone agrees on that, but it's because of humans, right? We look at all the methane, all the crap that we're shooting out into the air, and it's all getting hotter, and we're like, oh, it has nothing to do with us here in America, but it does. So in a way, it is kind of surprising, although as sad as that might sound, it is pretty surprising that this got passed.
Yeah.
People don't realize what they're consuming. Just really quickly, I was looking at a report where in gum, I don't want to name the manufacturer of the gum, but it's a gum that it's readily available at a checkout counter. It actually had a chemical in it that was used to keep drapes in houses from catching fire. A chemical retardant. Right. No, just don't eat the crap that's that's out there. Basically, do the organic.
It's beauty products. It's household products.
Everything.
It's everything that we use that we have no idea. But also, the one negative aspect is the fact that the EPA, when coming up with these regulations, they have to factor in the cost that it would cause to the company to actually remove these products. So again, it is a compromise between the chemical industry and Environmental Protection Agency. So we'll see how that goes. But one thing to consider also is that where Congress or where the government might fail or might not do enough, the market really is kind of coming to the consumer's aid. Because for even example, Walmart or Target, they're pushing for their suppliers to ban certain whole families of chemicals. So this is one area where the market really does do what's right.
They do it in response when people start to become more
that's what I
conscious
mean.
of it. But they'll always do what's the cheapest, right? And a lot of times they'll make it seem, for example, like they're doing something, for us or for the environment or for, as far as exploiting people overseas. They'll be like, oh no, we're not, keeping people in crappy conditions in our factories. But they are, and they're lying.
I guess they're putting their money where their mouth is, though,
I just don't trust people like companies like Walmart, for
Walmart's
example.
one of the #1 distributors of organic products, I believe, as a corporation in the States, if I'm not mistaken.
In terms of like
they sell so
detergents
much
and,
stuff that it's, of
Right.
course, they would be the #1 distributor of organic because
But
they're
that's all
mass
they'll
consumption.
advertise is, we're #1 in organic.
So very interesting little baby step we've made towards the government being able to regulate toxic chemicals. I want to end by quoting Andy Igrejas. He's the executive director of the Safer Chemicals Healthy Families Advocacy Coalition when he says, "This is not a champagne moment, but you deserve a beer at least."